Welcome, everybody. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Alice Simon, and I am a proud member of the faculty of Ohio Wesleyan University. I am a member of the faculty of the Department of Economics and Business, and I am the faculty director of the Walter Matthey Center for Economics, Business, and Entrepreneurship. To the members of the Ohio Wesleyan Board of Trustees, welcome. To the members of the Walter Matthey Center Board of Trustees, welcome. To the students, welcome. To the faculty, staff, and all the members of the community, thank you. And thank you for being here. We're very pleased this evening to be hosting the Robert L. Milligan Leaders in Business Lecture Series, and thrilled that one of our distinguished alums, Shadman Zafar, class of 1994, is here with us this evening. The Milligan Leaders in Business Series was made possible through a very generous endowment from the Milligan family, and we are honored this evening to have John F. Milligan with us. He is the class of 1983. He's the current chair of the Ohio Wesleyan Board of Trustees. He was a chemistry major when at Ohio Wesleyan and went on to earn his doctorate in biochemistry from the University of Illinois, and was an American Cancer Society postdoctorate fellow at the University of California at San Francisco. He's the president and chief executive officer of Gilead Sciences, a California-based biopharmaceutical company that advances the care of patients suffering from life-threatening diseases worldwide. John and the entire Milligan family have been and still are strong supporters of Ohio Wesleyan and have been for decades. Recently, John and his wife Kathy, also a 1983 graduate of Ohio Wesleyan University who majored in speech communication, contributed $5 million to benefit the OWU Connection, and for that we are forever grateful. Ohio Wesleyan, the Department of Economics and Business, the Walter Matthey Center, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. John F. Milligan, Dr. John F. Milligan.
Thank you, Alice. I'm sorry, Dr. Simon. I'm a Californian. I'm not very good at formality. I've become a Californian. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending here today. I just wanted to say a few words. This lecture was endowed by my grandfather. He was a very, very strong and avid supporter of Ohio Wesleyan. As you might imagine, growing up, it was clear that Ohio Wesleyan was the best university in the whole world. And that's literally what he said, in the whole world. Because he believes so much in the philosophy of broadly educated people who become leaders for the future. And as he was getting later in his life, he wanted to make sure that there was a series of lectures that would embody the entrepreneurial and business spirit that he felt was so important for America. The ability of individuals to go out, to try to succeed, to fail sometimes, and then to try to succeed again, but to have that spirit of entrepreneurship that was so important to building businesses, to building lives, to building communities, and to bettering people's lives. He was a very strong supporter of that. And so he endowed a lecture series so that each year a distinguished person could come in and describe how their life in business has been impacted by their education and how they've gone out and impacted the world because of who they are, because of the responsibility of being a business leader. I was lucky. I got to give this lecture in 2009. Never did I imagine that I would give the lecture that was endowed by my grandfather. And so it was a great honor to be able to stand here in this at this podium and talk about the work that we have been doing at Gilead over the years. And during that time, I spoke quite a bit about all the things that influenced me in my business decisions that came back to my education at Ohio Wesleyan, whether it be economics, where we've set up models of access for global supplies of HIV, or humanities, which really taught me how to think about the responsibility of public and private individuals. And so I am so thrilled that we can continue this spirit today, that my grandfather's legacy lives on, and I want to thank you for attending here today, and I look forward to the lecture. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Rock Jones.
Thank you, John. It's always great to have John and Kathy on campus, and wonderful to have all of you and a number of our trustees and alumni board members here this evening whose meetings begin tomorrow morning, as well as some advisory board members from the Waltamati Center, which had its meeting earlier today. What a day it has been on campus and for the community of Delaware, as this afternoon we formally cut the ribbon to open the Delaware Entrepreneurial Center at Ohio Wesleyan University. And how appropriate on this day that we celebrate and recommit ourselves to the spirit of entrepreneurship we have as the Milligan Leaders in Business Lecture, or Shadman Zafar. You can read in the program a bit about his current responsibilities and recent responsibilities in the banking industry. I want to tell you a little bit, tell you some things that you will not find in the program. And I'll tell you that he is an entrepreneur at heart. In fact, as a computer science major here at Ohio Wesleyan and in the years that followed, he created a product that he sold to Electronic Arts and began his journey as an entrepreneur. And today, in addition to his work with Citigroup, he oversees a number of private equity funds and a nonprofit organization that's engaged in research. And we had quite a fascinating conversation this morning about his interest in cognitive science and his desire to interact with students both in psychology and computer science to support the work of his nonprofit organization. What the program does not tell you is that in 1990 he came to Ohio Wesleyan sight unseen from his home in Pakistan, and over 4 years began to make a new home for himself in this country. He studied computer science. He graduated, and he went away. And he stayed away. And last spring, after Daisy Wilcox from our staff found him in Dallas, he returned to campus, and what a wonderful return it was. As he was planning his visit, he said there were two faculty he would like to see while he was here. One was his advisor, Dr. Jeffrey Nunemacher, who was the longtime chair of the mathematics department and continues on the faculty. And on this day in particular, it's particularly interesting to note that the other was Dr. David Robbins, who had taught him psychology and neuroscience, and he was able to spend time with both of them on that day. He stayed at the guest house, which is located next to the president's home on Oak Hill Avenue. And at about 1 o'clock in the morning, because this is what he would do about 1 o'clock in the morning as a student, he left the guest house, walked down the street to UDF to get ice cream. And I think he may have done the same last night. He's nodding his head. He has fond memories of Delaware. He has fond memories of Ohio Wesleyan, and I have fond memories of the opportunity to have become acquainted with him over the recent months. We are wonderfully happy, grateful that you have found your way back to Ohio Wesleyan now twice in a matter of a few months, and we hope many times, far more often in the years to come. It's a great pleasure to say welcome home to Shadman Zafar.
Woo, that was a great introduction. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It was an absolute joy, and I mean the UDF ice cream. It was an absolute joy to have that last night. But it is just absolute. Everybody can hear me fine? It was just wonderful to be back here, and honored to be here for this lecture series, and you two being here at the time. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into it. So Rock gave a great introduction. And before I start, I will sort of set a little bit of a context of what I thought about talking here today. It says Rules of Engagement, How to Succeed in Corporate America. This is actually a book I started working on just quite recently, planned for a publication in 2020. So you guys are getting a little preview of what I'm looking forward to put it in a book format. Couple of other things before I get started here is that, so as Rock says, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been in corporate world for a long time. However, I've started several companies over the years, continue to still oversee them. But really, truly at heart, I'm an inventor. I hold around 110 patents, inventions, And my first business in this country was really, as Rock said, was really selling my patents, my inventions, to a company called Electronic Arts, which is a large gaming company. And I stayed true to being an inventor, and many of the companies I've started, they started with some kind of an invention, a patent that ended up becoming a business. Anyway, during my journey, I sort of distilled a few rules which have always, that starting a new business or being in a large corporation becomes a key principle of success. And those are the ones we're going to talk about today here. But before I start that, just to get my audience right here, how many of you are students here? Raise your hands. Whoa, awesome. That's really good. 7:30 p.m. on Thursday night, and you guys are out here not partying but listening to a lecture. Very impressed about Ohio Wesleyan's focus on education. The second thing before I start I want to say is all of this, you will see, will reflect back to my deep belief how a school like Ohio Wesleyan is critically more and more important in today's economy. So today's economy have tremendous pressures from three angles. Traditional automation that's taking some jobs away, offshoring that's taking the jobs away to other places, and artificial intelligence. Some people may call that as automation, but being in that field, let me tell you, it's different. It is taking the kind of jobs away that we never thought in automation would take that away. Very human jobs, radiology, accounting, that require typically a good human skill set. And in corporate world, what we are looking more and more often are people who are very broadly educated, number one, but also the key skill sets that actually a broad education, small schools provide. Deep relationship building, ability to form emotional intelligence and form connections with people, which is what's most needed these days. So with that, I left my clicker right here. We'll start. So there are 12 rules we're going to talk through. And by the way, this is very interactive. Raise hand and ask question in the middle. I'm not going to wait until the end if you have any questions. So I broke these rules down. There are 12 rules, the basics, totally, that I hope everybody gets it. And if you don't, that'll be a sad state of affairs. And then there are intermediate. That is, so think of the basic rules are, if you're in a corporate world and a business world, how to not get fired. The intermediate, how to succeed, how to do well. And then advanced rules of how to be in C-suite of a company. Okay? So what would be most basic when you're in a business? What is one thing you can do to be successful? Do your job. I'm sorry? Do your job. That's very hard. That's like advanced. Okay, so show up. Thank you. Show up. And sadly enough, this probably reflects to the poor state of corporate America today. Yes, if you're wondering, bar is really that low. If you manage to get up, roll out of bed, put clothes on, and crawl into your car, get to the office and meander through the office to find your cube or office, and just sit there, you're halfway there. Okay, but joking aside, it's partly joking, but joking aside, actually being present is not that easy. It's not that easy. I see all the time people who are present and they are doing iPhone prayers. You know what iPhone prayers means, right? iPhone prayers, like when you're in a meeting and you're like, that's iPhone prayers. I'm glad you guys, nobody's praying right now. Minds are not what's happening today. Be present now, here. That a lot of people don't do today. We were actually at a dinner table, we were having this conversation. Everybody is in a second world. They are, even on a dinner table, you want to pass the salt, you text the other person, hey, pass me the salt. Not a good habit. Very important to show up and be present. But other half is the secret. So the other, again, we are still in the basics. What would be the second thing you'll need to do once you show up? So in college, in university, it's all about the Mountain Dew at midnight to get your homework done. You will have to unfortunately replace that with a tea at 5:30 a.m. Again, it sounds so mundane, just like showing up is mundane. And all the 4 basic ones are going to sound mundane, but they're actually very deep. Showing up early at work is actually much deeper. And I didn't realize that. True story, I had deep arguments with my friends at Ohio Wesleyan and some professors, including, I think, Dr. Robbins, where I said, no, I am genetically engineered to not be able to wake up in the morning, so I'm going to go through the college with taking only the classes that start at 10 a.m. and later. And I was very convinced about it. Anyway, once I got into the business world, I was like, that's not going to work. And my argument used to be, and I think many of your arguments is going to be, I'm working the same 12 hours, so I can start at noon and I'll go till midnight. And I'll do the same thing today. Instead of doing it at 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. Well, what's the difference? The difference is the following. In university, that will work. Because in university, you are working to get your homeworks and assignments and papers done, which you can do on your own. At work, you're working with tons of other people. So I'll tell you how this trick works. So what I do is I'll show up to work 2 hours before anybody else shows up, sometimes 3 hours. I'll spend 20, 30 minutes just planning my day, what I'm going to do. Now I have my task, what I need to do today, but after 30 minutes, I'll spend an hour and a half to start to ask different people, can you do this, can you do that? So I'll say, Jennifer, could you, you know brand really well, can you do some research? We're going to do a pitch to this company. Can you find out their brand, where they stand, what we should value that as? George, you are really good in finance. Can you go and look through the 10Ks and quarterly earnings of this company and give me an assessment of how you think this company is going to do? I'll send a note maybe to my boss or somebody in the board and say, do you think we really need to have this partnership? When we can actually walk away if they are not doing a great job with us? Then I'm going to ask a few questions from the people who work for me and vice versa. By the time people are about to show up, I have like 20 tasks, requests, guidance requests, suggestions out. Then at the same time, I'm going to start working on my job. Those 20 people will show up, and next 2.5 hours, 3 hours, they are working for me. They don't even work for me, but they are responding to those questions, doing the work that improves my work. By the noon, I've done half of my job for the day, but I've also gotten 22 people's work fed back into me. While those are the 20 people, 4 people, they're just starting their day. They just finished the task that got assigned to them somehow. So they're starting at noon. They're going to work late till 7 p.m., 8 p.m. At that point, they're really tired. And they just want to get their task done. They're not going to have a time to say, now for tomorrow, I'm going to assign tasks to others. They just want to get their task done because their spouse is calling them when you're going to meet for dinner. And by 7, 8 p.m., and they just finished their work, they want to get out. So though it's the same 12 hours we work, I have those 20 people somehow working for me 2-3 hours, plus I get to get my all job done at the same time, and my work is supplemented by what everybody did for me. So not possible if you're starting late, because you can't do that. And it's a daily thing. Every day has to work that way. Okay. Third piece. So when you get a homework assignment, if you take the assignment and you go to an upperclassman and say, hey, how do you do this? That's kind of frowned upon in school. That is leadership at work. The best advice I can give you is when you first start your work and you get an assignment, don't run to your computer and start to figure out how you're going to solve the problem or what the answer is. Go to the senior people, the junior people, your clients, your bosses, everybody else. Ask for their opinions. Ask for how do you do this? What is right? What is wrong? Have you done some things before which worked before, not worked before? There are 3 things will happen. First of all, your answers will be much more wiser. Will have a benefit of an experience of many other people. Number 1. Number 2, you will have a natural alignment when we try to push your ideas in the business. Naturally, all the people who have given you feedback and you have incorporated will be all behind you anyways. In the business world, most of the time, you're pushing your ideas forward. And of the people that you have to convince or upfront were actually asked about their ideas, they will already be there with you. And the last thing is that all those people will think of you as the leader. Think of you as the person who brings other people together. So don't try to be the smart one who can solve the problem, but ask the questions from the others. Last one of the basics is, in school, it is okay to just finish your reading assignment. Everybody in the class is going to show up. The reading assignment is read from page number 9 to page number 28. And if you have finished reading those pages, you're roughly going to be on the same footing as the rest of the class. Boy, that is so not true in the business world. Everybody is competing. Your business is competing. Your competitors are competing. You need to be continuously building deep knowledge. This includes continuous reading, continuous relationship development, continuous meeting with people inside your company, outside your company, to be the subject matter in your place. So those are at 4 basics, right? So not get fired. First of all, show up, be present, mentally and physically. Start your day early and assign, and not just start your day early, use that time wisely. Assign work to everybody else, so they'll work for you. Collaborate day 1 and build deep knowledge. Be the subject matter expert. Okay, so that will keep you in the job. So then, now we are at the intermediate level. Any questions on the basics? It sounds stupid. No? Okay. Intermediate. Anybody, I think, if you would talk to in corporate world today in a senior leadership role and say, what is one quality that makes people really, really successful? They will say emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. And without going into depth of what it is, if you really want to, it is a very important element. If you guys want to have a reading assignment right out of this lecture, you can read the original book by Daniel Goleman, The Emotional Intelligence, or recently, Tversky Bradbury, I think, so wrote Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Either one of them, great books of how to connect with people the right way. But without going into what emotional intelligence is, key elements you guys should remember is in a business world, you can do business 2 ways. Execute a transaction, get a sale done, get a specific project complete where you need somebody's help, or you build long-term relationships. So are you into a relationship business or are you in a transaction business? The relationship business wins every single time over a transaction business, even if one transaction specifically is making more money. Go into the mindset, any project, any job that you will take, that each day you're going to build a relationship that's going to go for a long period of time. And that will be the best asset that you will build for yourself for a long time to come. In some cases, that means, by the way, letting people take credit. Take a step back and let somebody be forward. And not forever let them walk all over you, but build that confidence and trust that you are a trusted partner. Not an easy thing to do. The second piece, that work needs to be your love. So we all spend in professional lives 8 to 10, 12 hours of our days working. That is roughly between 1/3 to half of our lives working. If you're not in love with that, it's going to be very frustrating. But in addition to, is it frustrating or not, this is just good business. This is how you actually find opportunities. At lunch, somebody was asking me that question, how you find opportunities. And I told them, if you come with passion, you'll find an opportunity. And I gave them a story. I'll repeat that here for those of you who are at lunch. I apologize for repeating. I was a young kid in Verizon at the time, and I was somehow convinced that, all this internet is super slow, following on the copper wire, and we need to rip all of this thing out and put everything in America on fiber network. And I went to the CEO and said, we really need to do this. This is the future. We have to do it. And promptly I was kicked out of his office. And they says, you're a kid. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is billions of dollars of investment. We're not going to have the return on investment. Can't do it. Sorry. Go do your job. I was like, oh, but why can't they get it? Why can't they understand this is so important? This is the future. But instead of just smoldering, which I did a little bit, after a month, I decided I'm going to write a letter. I wrote a letter to the CEO and says, I would like to dedicate 3 years of all of my bonus and 50% of my salary to the company. If the company will move forward doing this project and invest my salary and bonus into this project, I'm happy to, and I'm ready to sign this. Obviously, that didn't account to more than 0.0001% of the project investment, but it got me back into CEO's office. Say, you really believe you want to do this? I was like, yes, I really do. Otherwise, I'm going to go to another company and work on it. He says, okay, come to the board and present to the board. So I went in front of the board and I made a presentation to the board. And I was asking for $24 billion in investment, 24 billion with a B. So I finished the presentation, and one of the board members, who I believe was the former Secretary of Treasury, said, so I said, any questions? And he says, son. I was like, oh boy, that's going to go really bad when a question starts with a son. He said, you know how much money you're asking for? It's the same amount of money this country spent on Project Manhattan. And I had now a few seconds to decide how to answer this, either like hide my head and run away that I don't know what I was talking about, or say, yes, of course. And Project Manhattan changed the future of this country and the world, just like this investment will change the future of this company. Long story short, we got approval, $24 billion. At that time, it was the largest infrastructure project in the United States. That ended up generating one of the fastest growing businesses of Verizon called Fios, which ended up giving it enough cash flow that it used to invest into what you guys know as 4G, which was a wireless investment essentially. But long story short, it was all about, if I was right or wrong aside, it was passion, an ability to say, I want to go on a limb to say, yes, I want to do this because I totally believe in it. So you have to do that to create your own opportunities. Execution. The single most important measure that executives are measured on is, do they get stuff done? It is not enough to be ultra smart. That is great for Einstein, who can, in a room in Princeton, sit down and recreate mysteries of the universe with the general theory of relativity. In the business world, you have to do stuff every day. And some of this stuff is not going to be fun, not going to be intellectually even challenging, but you still need to get pieces done. Having that discipline and that's the discipline you learn at school. Getting your homeworks done on time, getting your papers done on time, living your life in a balanced way is an extremely important piece, that every day you get basic tasks done. The hard work is still needed. Then the focus. So this is the biggest challenge in society today. Okay, we are all living in the Snapchats and Instagrams and Facebooks and whatnot. None of us can, we are right now, our focus and attention span is competing with goldfish, and I think goldfish is winning. Because few seconds not pass by, people look up on your cell phone, one thing or the other. This is a skill you have to develop here, because it's too late by the time you get to work. And in focus, you have to do two things. One is avoid busy work. Corporate life is full of busy work. If you are not focused on measuring yourself of what matters, then you're never going to say, you're going to be very busy, you're going to do lots of work, you're going to get 20 hours a day, but you're not going to accomplish anything. Establish for your job. There's a great book actually called, by this name, Measure What Matters, by John Doerr, who's the CEO of Kleiner Perkins, the greatest VC firm in Silicon Valley. And he talks about the story of how Andy Grove, the CEO, founder of Intel, established this mechanism of setting up KPIs, the key performance indicators. And he ran the company just driving those KPIs, and how there are thousands of variables that are moving around, but just focus on those. That could be NPS, your net promoter score from what your customers think of your company. It could be sales close per day, whatever might be the important things for you, but just focus on those and drive those, and let the other variables move around. You need to do that personally for yourself, what you want to improve, what you want to accomplish. And the second part, get into the habit. This is actually a big thing in corporate America today, of moving to performance-based cultures, not efforts-based cultures. When you are in the corporate world, soon you will have your yearly or quarterly ritual of getting your performance evaluations, where your boss will sit down with you and say, how did you do? Please do me a favor and do not start those conversations with, I've been working 18-hour days. I've been working so hard. I worked on the weekend. You know, maybe your moms and dads really care about that how our poor kid is working so hard. It really doesn't matter. Actually, in some cases, it looks bad. Maybe you don't know what you're doing. That's why you're having to work 18-hour days. But focus on what you accomplish, what you get done. Focus on your performance, on your output, not on your input. That's the way you need to keep your focus on. Okay, so those were our 4 items on intermediate: EQ, passion, execution, and focus. Now to advanced, and maybe somewhat, some may say somewhat transcendental or so. But, so excellence. It is very important that you are not doing the work of what the company have asked you to do and what they have asked you, what level of quality is expected. Your measure should always be, am I going to be proud of this? Can I show this to my kids or my husband or my wife or my mom or dad, and I'm going to be proud? That will set a natural internal compass for you of what should be the quality of your work. And you have to keep running after that. They say perfection is not attainable, but running after perfection allows you to catch excellence. So keep running until you are proud of your work. Balance your life. It's very easy, especially early in your life, to go crazy. Work 18, 20 hours and nothing else matters because you really want to move ahead and forward. This is actually not a good idea. This is actually not. I'll tell you a personal story which was very funny somewhat. So I was in JP Morgan Chase, and Jamie Dimon is a great leader, personal friend, and I really like his style of leading. And he was sitting with a small group of senior leaders, maybe 30 people, let's say. It was a meeting in January, and he was thanking people, and he said, we just finished holidays. It was a crazy year, but very successful for the company. I'm sure many of you had to work through the holidays to get all the work done for the last year. How many of you actually worked through the holidays? And that was a bait. So 3 of the executives raised their hands, and he goes like, shame on you. Shame on you. Please do not do that again. I have a feeling that if you guys had not taken time off, this company would have still been okay. But now your family will remember for decades that because of this company, you could not spend the holiday with them. Yes, there are times when you have to do special work back and forth, but you need to figure out how to balance your life. That will bring you actually fresh to work every day. You'll be more creative, and you will be more happy at work. Last 2, second to last, simplify. I would say most of the corporate lives actually can be answered with this one question. Actually, some of the great products in the market today is about this. Relentlessly simplify what's going on. And you could say that, oh yeah, Apple simplified the CD business, and so you can just buy whichever phone you want for 99 cents, and that was very simple. Oh yeah, you can simplify. Amazon simplified one-click buying, so you do a one-click and it ships without you have to worry about putting your credit card number and their address, and that gets super simplified. Uber actually made it even more simple, and you don't even have to know about your payments. You just open the door and leave, and the payment gets happened behind the scenes. But those are big products, and what can I do? Simplification is at all levels extremely important. Start with your daily communications. Make a promise to yourself when you're in a corporate life, for example. Don't write an email that's more than 5 lines. Don't write these 2-page long emails and meander away for a long time. Processes that happen in the company, how you design the products in general, how you even market solutions. Each time ask the question, can it be done more simply? Including the processes that are in the company, question them every day. They say simplification, they being Da Vinci, I guess, said simplification is the highest form of sophistication. It's absolutely true. The most beautiful products are the most simplest of them all, and same thing is with processes. And I will end it with an obvious one, is that when you do all of the first 11, first are the basics, which are probably like everybody should do, and then some of the intermediate ones. So now you're working hard, you're execution oriented, you're focused, you have a great emotional intelligence, you work, you show up to work every day, you show up there early in the morning, you are simplifying things. It's hard to be humble. You might be thinking, I'm pretty cool. It's hard to be humble at that point. But don't be humble just because it's a good thing to do. It's actually good business. It really is good business. When you are at every stage of your life, asking questions at all levels, am I doing this right? Not, give me a feedback, and learn that, you will continuously be improving. And that's the personal goal you should set up. Each day, each week, say, did I improve a little bit? Because if you didn't, then you are declining. So I would end this by saying, try to live your life as a beginner. No matter you become a subject matter expert in anything, and you're a CEO of a company, or you are a president of some fund, live your life as a beginner. Learn in each of your interactions, learn something from people. Okay, so those are my 12 rules. I will end at that and maybe turn it on if people have any questions.
We have some students who can help with bringing mics around for questions. Just raise your hand and we can come up to you.
If no questions, I'll take that as I was extremely lucid and it was obvious, or it was extremely complicated and you had no clue, or you were checking your emails and Instagramming.
Hello, and
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
well, thank you for sharing. And as someone that goes through some similar controls at a large corporation, I want to know how you try to embody your entrepreneurial heart and spirit within the confines of the regulation and other constraints of being in the C-suite.
Wonderful question. Obviously, I live in a deep. Are you in a regulated industry?
JP Morgan.
Yeah. Okay. I used to work there. Okay. So good. I can share exactly with you because there are a few. I will tell you a few rules directly matched there. The number one rule on collaboration is when issues come in. My first goal when I started JP Morgan Chase, I started this thing called a bi-monthly review with regulators. That didn't used to exist. And people were actually scared. Why you want to like go to the regulator and just tell them what you're doing? You know, the reason was not that I was just really wanted to love the regulators. Is I started telling them what we are thinking, what are your ideas? And instead of them sort of tightening us down, they opened up and were giving us suggestions how we should do it. So by the time we start to roll out Quick Pay, you know Quick Pay? Okay. That was one of my products. The regulators were 100% behind it. 100% behind it. They actually took that as an example and presented it to the Bank of America and Wells Fargo to say, this is how we should do it. And actually, that product took most of the design of that product, what created then what's now known Zelle. So Zelle, through Clear Exchange, which is now early warning system, actually took some of those concepts and made it a US standard. But I think its success depended on upfront, early, continuous engagement of asking the people who's going to stop you. See what I was telling you here, when you ask the questions, those people will get aligned. So when you want to push the product, they'll be behind it. So that's that's what I have, that's how I have approached it generally. That doesn't mean, by the way, it solves everything. That's why they told us the kind of things that, for example, I really wanted to do about global money movement and stuff, but you couldn't. But then you adjusted and say what things will move forward easily, which ended up being a good question. Appreciate it. John, you had something.
Yes, so I had a question. Since we have to wait till 2020 for your book, are there authors who've inspired you, and what books would you recommend that people read on business leadership?
Very much so, very much so. I will give you 4 or 5 books that have impacted me quite a bit. On execution, I love Larry Bossidy's book, Execution. I also like a more recent book by the son of Franklin Covey. His name is Sean Covey. And he has a book called 4 Disciplines of Execution. Also a very interesting book. Talking about Sean Covey, the other, just the integrity of people, of how to do the leadership. Sean Covey's sort of posthumous book, Franklin Covey's posthumous book, is called Primary Leadership. It's an amazing book of what is a primary secondary leadership means. On simplification, I love 2 books. One is called Why Simple Wins by Lisa Bodell. And that's just how to simplify corporation. And then there is another book by Eric Koch. It's called Simplify. And that's a book about how the company's propositions should get simplified. So he assesses things like simplification of offerings by price or by propositions. So that's my favorite books on simplification. I love another book on willpower, which is building some of these habits, and it's called Willpower. What is it? How to get more of it? How you can get more of it? It's actually a Stanford course that got compressed into 12 chapters on a book. That is one of my other favorite books. And the last one when I said measure what matters. Measure What Matters. That's the name of the book. It's by John Doerr, who's the CEO for Kleiner Perkins. So that's some of my favorite reads, I would say. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know it's late night. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again.